Conversation by Julie Benetti and Susan Barbaro is a production of EI Publishing in association with EI Alliance, copyright 2018. Visit eipublishing.com for more. Music for this series is courtesy of New Threads, copyright 2018, from their self-titled album, available now.
Hi, I'm here with Julie, and we're here to talk about something that actually sounds very simple, but the premise and the end goal is far-reaching. It's about self-respect, and in honor of
in honor of Aretha Franklin, we're doing a podcast on self-respect.
And everybody hears about self-respect. And, I have self-respect, whatever. And I think it's funny that if you lack self-respect and someone were to say to you, let me tell you what's important about self-respect, and I relate it to the person. Oh, it makes you feel good and empowers you, blah, blah, blah. Someone who lacks self-respect isn't going to listen. Yet, if you turn it around and you say, if you have self-respect, other people benefit, well, then maybe their ears perk up. Because if you sit there and you talk about, something for you, they, never me, not me. I always kind of really dislike when I hear people say, oh, no, don't do it for me. Oh, I'm not worth it. Don't. It's like, oh, stop it. Because that's really not the truth. And if you don't acknowledge yourself, here's the bottom line is that if you don't have love for yourself, I mean, how do you have love for anyone else?
Right.
They talk about all these issues in life, bullying and bigotry, and how do you solve it? Well, by going outside and punishing people that are doing bad things. Not saying we don't do it, but it's just kind of funny because if you don't empower the person to like themselves, they're never going to like anybody. And I just find it interesting because a lot of the things that I've been talking about, we've been talking a lot about goals and we've been talking about purpose, and I think sometimes that kind of has some impact on the idea of self-respect, self-esteem, whatever the word is you want to call it. Because everyone's always talking about having a purpose or a goal. And I'm using the two words interchangeable, and they're not exactly the same. And I could look up, Webster's dictionary and give a definition, but
when I hear self-respect, I always think a good monitor, because how can you tell if, you have self-respect for yourself? And for me, a good monitor is if other people aren't respecting you, then you're not having respect for yourself. And that doesn't mean any of the old traditional, like Italian movies, I do get respect, that kind of thing, That's not what I'm talking about. If there are things that are occurring and you're in situations and other people aren't respecting you when you're in those situations, then you're not respecting yourself. There's something that you're not clear on within yourself. And of course, I'm, speaking from experience. And if there's something occurring and you're getting backlash about something, I mean, it's a good chance that you're not in the presence of self-respecting yourself. And there's some things that you should kind of do a quality control check on or an analysis on and find out, are you really, involved in the things you want, doing what you want? Is this really what you want to do? Is this really how you're feeling? And it's okay to ask yourself those things.
I think that's a part of it. But what do you think about when you have self-respect, what anyone else says or thinks, you don't really care? I mean, not that you want to go out and hurt people. I mean, I don't think you understand that it has nothing to do with you. Well, I mean,
so I think when you have self-respect, that part doesn't affect you. I'm going to say it that way.
Right.
I think
that's what I'm saying.
That acknowledgement of that doesn't kind of enter your sphere. So when you're moving with self-respect, you're garnishing the environment and you're tending the environment around you to have that occur in reaction to you. And once again, it's not, a tough guy act or anything like that at all. It's just in genuine an authentic presence of who you are and what you really want to do. And a lot of times, sometimes you have to take the time to figure that out.
No, I understand that. And I think, I think having time for yourself, I think a lot of people don't want time alone because they're alone with their own thoughts and they would prefer to be with other people and being distracted. And, people call them, are you introverted or you extroverted? And I don't believe that, and if you're going to use a definition, it's almost like by defining something, you don't have self-respect. I mean, you could define me however you want. There's so many things you can use to describe me and you or anyone else, but that's not self-respect. And I sometimes, I sit there and I'll say to people like, I know that, fortunately, I've never let myself down. And I've had lots of things that have occurred, as has everybody else. And I think, if you look back on yourself, and when I say this, I'm not talking about just me. I'm thinking most people, if you really look in your own past, you can turn around and say, I've never let myself down. I've always been there for myself. And it's funny because I started thinking, well, if there's anyone I really want on my side, it's me.
Right.
Because I'm with me 24/7.
Right.
I never can escape me.
Right.
And so when I look back and I think of all the things that I have been through, and again, everyone can do this. This isn't that I'm trying to say I'm anything more, but if I look back and I say, wow, I really have gotten myself through a lot of stuff. I can, if that were anyone else, I would be like, wow, that's amazing. What you've done is, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but one wouldn't say that to themselves.
Right.
And I think that's a huge disservice. And, from my experience with people who don't have self-respect, whether it's self-loathing, whether it's self-doubt, whether it's any number of things, they're usually the ones that are the people that are the most nastiest. You think they're mean and they're nasty to you, but the truth is it's a reflection on themselves.
Right.
They're the ones that are out protesting everything. They're the ones that are out, creating problems. I'm not going to go into, on both sides. When you have self-respect and you really care about who you are and you have love for yourself, that's the only way you can have love for someone else.
Right. And why would you care about all those other things that are extraneous? You wouldn't.
No. Because, and so that's what I think is so important when, I hear all these horrible things about drugs and about bullying, about anxiety, about, I don't even know where to start with everything else that's going on out there. And everyone points the finger. It's because this one's doing that. It's because, they all believe that if you get the one, and whoever you want to define that is, then life is going to be wonderful again. And if you don't like yourself, then it doesn't matter who shows up. You're not going to like them.
Right.
And I just think that this is such an important concept. And I know I'm struggling a little bit with the words for it, but it's like if we want to change anything, it really is, the man in the mirror, Michael Jackson.
Right.
It really is the man in the mirror. But people think, well, I need to be nice to everybody. And sure, but you got to be nice to yourself first and foremost. And none of us are ever taught that. We're always taught to be selfless. And when we're always taught to do, it's funny, do unto others as you do unto yourself. Well, we don't do that.
Right.
And I just think that, because we just finished, reading As a Man Thinketh Too, and we're talking about purpose and we're talking about thoughts and beliefs and everything else. If you don't like yourself, you're never going to do the work to improve yourself, improve your lot, because the minute you open it up, you're going to think of all the reasons why you're not worth it and all this other stuff.
And a sad thing too is a lot of people, and sometimes you find this in your own life in different stages of your life, they don't even get to that point of not liking themselves. They're in just such misery that they haven't even defined it as that yet. They're in such distraction and dysfunction by everything that occurs out there and everything they're involved in that they've forgotten their self.
So, it's interesting because because this is what I do. I go then to the how. I go into how, don't roll your eyes at me. Yet I always go into the how because I think it's a huge problem. And, I've always said I'm not Mother Teresa and I'm not out trying to make the world a certain way because who am I to decide anything? Yet it would be nice to have people who did care about themselves and love themselves to be around because they're a much happier bunch and, and they're supportive. I mean, if you're happy with you could be happy for everybody. Really.
Well, actually, if you're happy with you can be happy with everybody too, because you said you can be happy for everybody. Put whatever preposition you want in there. Sure. You can be happy with everybody. So guess what? Somebody probably doesn't rub you the wrong way.
So what would you say to someone? Because I always think, who would be listening to these, and that's not a metric thing. I always think, it would be someone like me. I always think I talk to. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to someone like me who's constantly working on myself. I try to understand life different, and that's who I always think that I'm talking to. People that are really trying to be a better person, and until you recognize that being a better person is being better to yourself, and taking the time to see who you are and make you a better person, not for out there, but because you're with you 24/7, you can't leave you. And so what would your thoughts be, Julie, about, if someone were in that space, and what's the first step?
Well, I think it's valuable to kind of not go with the flow of everybody that's complaining, and to find out if you're complaining all the time about everything and externalizing circumstances that occur. And once again, we are just coming off of doing the podcast on James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, because I'm talking about circumstances that occur around you where you're judging, and those things are hitting you a different way. And sometimes you fall into the vat of everybody else who's complaining, and that takes you in a whole different direction where you're just disregarding yourself completely. Well, and I think that there's an awareness there. I mean, always kind of, the reason why I rolled my eyes when you said how is because it always goes to me with an awareness and an acknowledgement, and just going to the simple aspect of getting that something's off. Because a lot of us, we're all smart and we all have the answers within us. And yet getting to that and taking it down to a simplicity of, if something doesn't feel right, if I'm not happy with the way something is or my life is going or something, that takes either circumspection or to kind of analyze or look at the situation. Yes, that does take work. And if you want to do that work, that's for yourself.
Well, if you don't do the work, the only option is to complain.
Right.
And when you complain, you actually give the power to change anything to someone else.
Right. And
it's, sometimes I guess it's easier to say, oh, if it's going to be fixed, so-and-so's going to fix it. Well, okay, but it's not going to fix you. We can't, I can't change the way someone thinks. All I can do is provide a process or an idea, and whether someone takes it and where they go with it, I have no control. But if the minute you just go into complain, you give up all your power. And I think people understanding that's huge.
And what if everybody instead got together with a camaraderie to kind of look inside themselves?
Well,
and find the answers.
That would be wonderful. Mm-hmm. That's utopia. Yet I would think that, if you do it, then that's all the camaraderie you need.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It would, and so these podcasts are trying to, support that too, because we do the work, and you and I sit and talk a lot, and we support each other and people around us. And so why not support that, provide that support for anyone else who happens to find this and listen to it.
Right.
And that's the only thing I would say is the minute you find yourself complaining, you're not in alignment and you're giving your power away. So you need to, it's literally, you have a choice of what to think. You can either think it's black or it's white. It's you know, it's warm or it's cold. You can't be, it's hot and it's cold at the same time. It's got to be one or the other. So you make a choice. What am I going to choose here? If it's really hot outside, you say, all right, I'm going to go into a cooling mode, because then it's going to, you have the choice. You can't think two things at the same time. So those are some of the things that I think of. And I just think it's important. I think it's really important for people to get this, because until this changes, you know, we're going to continue to have bullying. We're going to continue to have wars. We're going to continue to have drug problems, because people are not addressing the core of the problem. Mm-hmm. And it's been the same thing. You know, we're going to tell you what to say. We're going to tell you what to do. We're not going to tell you how you can change your own mindset. Right. But we're going to tell you what you should say, and we're going to give you help, because we're going to tell you all the things that are wrong. And then if you get off of whatever it is, if you know, and I mean, for bullying, I mean, that's the biggest thing. You bully the bully until they stop. It's like, what? What? No. Wait a minute. What if you empower a person and the person sits there and the bully comes over and says something? The person looks and says, wow, you know, I'm surprised. I had a friend of mine who's got a young child, says, you know, we had a conversation. I told her what to say. And so her son comes in and says, oh, everyone's getting these kind of sneakers. And she originally says, oh, you know what? Well, you know, this is the way. I says, don't take his power away by saying, well, you know, they do these things. And I says, and she said it. And what I said is just say, well, that's what's important to them. Mm-hmm. We know better. Having these, you know, $500 sneakers is not really important to us. It's important to them. Mm. And I says, you change the energy. And she sat there and said, oh my God, I said it to him, and it was the perfect situation. And, you know, it's not about yay me. It's about, I said, you got it. And you worked with the energy, and you didn't take his power away and make him feel inferior. You sat there and said really what you wanted to say to him, which is really the truth is, well, that was important to them. It's not important to us to have $500 sneakers. And you didn't say anything bad, and just saying those few words changed the energy. And actually, it changed the energy for the mother. She was like, oh my God. I'm like, and I says, isn't that really what you would want to say to him? And it's like, if we say really what we want to say, it's so empowering.
Well, it brought the power back to the self rather than what was going on with everybody else.
And so where I'm going with it is that really is what it's about. I mean, to sit there, and if you're bullied and you look at someone and you just say, I don't know what's up with them. You don't even have to say it out loud, but I don't know what to say. And they just can't affect you, you know, then it's like, there's nothing they can do that affect you. And guess what? In time, they stop bullying you, just because it's like, what do you do when someone just doesn't listen, you know?
And, you know, it's interesting because a little bit before this, before you mentioned that example, you talked about how people say, okay, this is what's wrong and this is what you need to do. Well, how do they know? I mean, really, they're sitting there saying, I mean, you can, you know, we share in our podcast just because we experience things, and, you know, we work in energy and it comes to light and we're talking about it and we say, oh, let's do a podcast and share it. Yeah. And it either equates or aligns to whoever's listening to it, or it doesn't, or, you know, that's what's occurring, or it's supportive. And it goes in that direction, and that's fine. It's just sharing. But I mean, anyone who says, this is what's wrong, you're wrong, and here's what you need to do. I mean, you know, I don't want to go into this because that goes all the way into the self-help industry. Which isn't helping self at all. I mean, what a horrible terminology. It is.
Was it 20 years later? Or was it in the 50s? When did it start? 70s? I mean, here we are so many years later, and we're still having the same problems.
Right, and what horrible terminology to describe something that doesn't even do. Here's a vacuum, but it doesn't clean your house. There's no use for it whatsoever, and, you know, leave it in your closet.
Yeah. So I just thought this was an important topic, and I know it's very general. The terms that we've used and the things we've talked about are very general, yet I think that it's very potent.
Right. Because we're sharing in the energy of it, and it's something that, there's a need for yourself for it to be acknowledged. For
but you have to acknowledge it.
Yes,
you don't need.
Yes.
No, it doesn't mean someone else has to acknowledge it. And I mean, which goes to what we're saying. Julie and I have these conversations continuously. I mean, all the time. And other people have said you have to share it, and that's what we're doing. Neither of us are looking for validation from anyone. I mean, if someone says, just this has been awesome, it has helped us, that's great. My thing would be share it. You continue to share it. But if nothing comes from this and no one says anything, it doesn't change the fact that what it did for us. So
right. And I think, Aretha Franklin, definitely said it perfectly, when she started saying it, when she spelled out RESPECT, find out what it means to me. I mean, absolutely beautiful, simple, great song. And that's it.
And that's it. Enjoy. And remember, take care of yourselves.
This has been a production of EI Publishing in association with EI Alliance. Listen to other episodes and visit eipublishing.com to find more energized podcasts and books. Find New Threads' self-titled album, New Threads, on iTunes, Spotify, Bandcamp, or at newthreads.us. Thank you for listening.